Welcome to the Conscious Leadership Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss the how-to of creating conscious leadership for business, life, and the world. With ordinary people doing extraordinary things and being truly in control of their own health, wealth, and happiness. Knowledge plus action with a plan creates magical results. Introducing your host, Julie Hogbin, author, international speaker, mentor, disruptor and creator of conscious leadership and property investor living in the UK. Stress, what is it and how does it affect us? I have just written a book which will be published May 2020, which is a result of 30 plus years of working with individuals within business, from chief execs to members of staff and from members of staff to boards of trustees. And I'm sort of at my wit's end a bit about how stress is within our control and we don't do the things that we need to do to not experience it. So a definition of stress is that it is, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back. So stress is caused by too much pressure. And it's pressure on top of pressure, on top of pressure, on top of pressure. And it gets to the point where our coping strategies, our abilities, our skill sets, our coping strategies can't cope anymore. Now the thing is with this, we don't know when that straw is going to land on the camel's back to break it. And I thought I would tell you a personal story on this first, if you like, episode within stress, because I believe we're just in lockdown in the UK. I think we're going to get more and more and more stress-related illnesses because of what's going on within the world currently. And I am making it my mission to enable people to have control over that by creating self-awareness. So the misconception with stress is that people perceive it to be as a result of negative incidences within their life, but it isn't. Stress can be caused by positive influences in our life as well as negative, and it's the combination of the two. So it isn't just from one source, and stress comes at us from the work environment, from our home environment, from our financial situation, basically how we live our life, and pressure is applied from all of those angles. So let me tell you a story to give you a really good understanding of how it can happen. So when I was around probably late 20s, I don't actually have a deadline, a date for this, but probably around late 20s, maybe 30, something like that. I had been married and I realised that my marriage was not working, shall I say, and the marriage ended. Now, there was a lot of pressure through that whole period. I had been accused of poisoning my husband. All I was doing was cleaning his flask out. It wasn't good, and the saddest part of all of that, we actually had 2 dogs and I couldn't take the dogs with me. So marriage ended. I went from my family home with my husband back to living with my parents, which was absolutely there wasn't an issue with me living with my parents at all. My parents were great. So I went back home to where I'd been sort of born and bred and brought up. I lived with my parents. We had, my husband and I had 2 cars. Now, I'm not having a go at my husband. We are actually friends now. And this was a long time ago. This was decades ago. We had 2 cars. I took the cheapest of the 2 cars. And I remember my dad saying to me, you're going to wake up one day and your car will be gone. I said, no, it won't. So we had this whole process of where, as I came home from work, my father would pull his car out of the drive. I would park mine in front of my dad and my dad would pull his car up behind me. And I was out late one night, and if I was out late, I would come home and move the cars about to save my dad going out, late. And one day I come home and it had been a good few months, and I thought, oh, it'll be fine. So I just pulled the car up the drive behind my dad's car. Lo and behold, came out the following morning, my car had gone. So there was a whole raft of things going on. I remember my mum dealing with all sorts. We were talking to solicitors, and of course when solicitors get involved in this sort of stuff, they add in additional pressure, as in financial pressure, because you've got to pay the bill. And it was taking so long, the letters were going backwards and forwards, it was all getting a bit out of hand. Now, at the same time all that was going on, we didn't have children, so there was no children involved in us. It was just two adults. Now, while all that was going on, I changed jobs. I was looking for a new job. I got a new job. It was more money. It was a better position. At that point, I was practicing accountancy. That was my trade. I got a better job. I got a new position. But of course, that means meeting new people, doing new things, working out new processes and all of that goes with it. And I didn't really like it. It wasn't the job that had been promised as part of the interview process. The boss was odd, shall I say, and he actually sacked me. I'd only been there 2 days. I haven't thought about that for a while. I'd been there 2 days. He took me into the office and he actually sacked me. Anyway, I went back to the agency, and they were furious because apparently he had done it to the last 4 or 5 people that he'd employed. So there was clearly a pattern coming from him. It wasn't about me, it was about him and what was going on. But again, you've got a new job, you've left one job, you've got a new job, you then haven't got a new job, you don't have the income coming in, and you've got to go and find another job, which I did, no problem. But you go back out to the interviews and everything that goes with that. So that was happening. At the same time as all that was happening, I started a new relationship, which was absolutely fabulous. It was a stunning relationship. It lasted for about 14 years, so it wasn't sort of a flash in the pan type thing. And I mean, it was a good relationship. And again, my social life changed. My pressures of meeting new people changed. The guy was a businessman. We would go out to functions in the evening and every weekend. We would go to events in London. We'd go to nightclubs in London. In the UK, for those of you that are listening abroad, we would actually on occasions get a chauffeur to take us into London because he was a successful businessman. Now, I had never been introduced to that life before, and it was fabulous. I mean, I enjoyed every single minute of it. I would spend the weekends at his house, so I was living half at his house and then half at my parents', which got a bit tiring, but it's what you did. And what happened was that one Sunday lunchtime, this was probably about 18 months, 2 years after the separation, and at that point the divorce had gone through, so the decree nisi was through. I had a new car. My partner had accessed a percentage discount through Ford, I think it was at the time, because he was into dealerships. I'd got a new car. It was just a Fiesta, but quite a nice one at the time. And this one Sunday lunchtime, we were going to the pub, and my partner had just taken delivery of his new car, and he asked me if I wanted to drive it to the pub. It was a Range Rover. I had not driven a Range Rover before, and here's the interesting thing. My brother, my eldest brother, had been a sales rep for the majority of his life, and every time he got a new car, he would bring it home for me to drive. So the effect of driving brand new cars, high-powered cars, wasn't an issue. As part of my marriage, my husband and I had been into cars. We used to drive and do up and sell and buy and sell RS 2000s at the time. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. and we belonged to a car club. We would go down to one of the racetracks in Kent, and we would, race the cars around the racetrack. So driving cars, driving high-powered cars, driving cars that had that were brand new, didn't affect me at all. But this Sunday, I got in the car, drove it to the pub. It was fabulous. It drove like a dream. It was a really nice car. Got to the pub, went in, met friends, and remembering this is about 2 years sort of into this whole process. Met friends, got my normal drink, which at the time was a vodka and tonic. It got put on the bar, and I went to pick it up, and I physically could not pick up the tumbler of vodka and tonic. Couldn't pick it up. My arm was shaking so much. I felt fine, but my arm was shaking. So I thought, well, okay, so I'm right-handed, tried with my right hand, that wasn't happening. Tried with my left hand, that wasn't happening either. The shaking in the left was worse. It was very different. So I didn't drink the drink, but I felt right, carried on with the conversation. But of course, the next round came. And I hadn't drunk the first one, which was unusual. So my drinking habits had increased. I was the fittest I've probably ever been in my life. I had my diet a change because of the going out and living between my mum and my partner's house at the time. Second round came round. Of course, it was noticed I hadn't drank the first one, but I sort of brushed it off. Didn't want to say anything to anybody. A little bit embarrassed by the fact that I was shaking. And third round came round, and my partner sort of said to me, "What's the problem? You're not drinking. Are you okay?" And I said to him, "No, I'm not okay. I can't pick the glass up. I physically cannot pick the glass up because I'm shaking so much." He said, "What's the problem?" Don't know. Anyway, the irony of all this as a story is that first drink, that particular Sunday lunchtime, I drank through a straw while it was on the bar, with my partner sort of shielding me from everybody else because he could see that I was embarrassed. Anyway, shakes stopped at that point. And from then on in, I would be very careful about what I did and how I did it. I couldn't pick a cup. When I was on my own, I could pick glasses up. I could drink, unless I was really, really tired. But put me in company, and I wasn't able to pick a cup up, a coffee or a tea or a glass of water. I couldn't physically pick it up without shaking. And of course, if you've got a sort of a teacup in a saucer, some of the meetings I went to at that point had teacups in saucers, not mugs that we now use. I would pick it up and you would hear it shaking. So I would not drink while I was in a meeting. If I went out, I would never order soup. Couldn't physically get it to my mouth without spilling it. Even to this day, I sometimes don't order soup when I go out, when I may like it, because it's left me with a feeling of that it may come back. So over the period of time, I never took I didn't take any time off work. Stumbled on that one. I didn't take any time off work. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what was causing it. I felt fine. Bodily, I felt fine apart from my arm shaking. Mentally, I was fine. I was going to work. Doing everything that I had always done. I was still going to the gym and to the exercise classes, still going out. It didn't affect me as much, but I knew there was something. And over the years, I managed it. And now what happens, so this is probably 3 decades later now what happens if I push myself to the end? So if I party, if I burn the candle at both ends, now that doesn't have to be partying, that doesn't have to be, and then if I add the partying, so burning the candle at both ends, and the increase of alcohol that quite often goes with that, not as much anymore because I've realised what the problem is, the shakes come back. Now that's nearly 3 decades later. It is not as bad now as it used to be because I have learnt ways of managing it. I now know it was stress, but I truly believe, and I've never been to the doctors about it because what are they going to do? I truly believe I've, in some respects, irreparably damaged my body. But what I am now able to do is recognise when my body is telling me that I have got an issue. I can feel it before it gets to the shaking position. So I have learned over the years, A, what caused it, B, what to do about it, C, to listen to my body to recognise what it's telling me. And to be honest, over the last few years, I hadn't really thought about this until I've started to talk this story. Over the last few years, it hasn't actually bothered me. And in the last few years, my eldest brother has died, my father has died, and my mother has died. That's in the last 5 years. But the shaking hasn't come back because I now know how to manage it. Now that's resulted in another story, which I'll do, which has, again, escalated into stress, but completely different. So I'll do that as a separate story because I don't want these to be too long. Now that is one of the reasons why I have written the book as part of this lockdown process, because I truly believe all of these additional pressures that we are getting on us and we don't have control of. So some of these pressures we can control, some of the pressures we can influence, and others we can't. So when we can control the areas we can control and we can influence the areas we can influence, the no control zone on our stress, on our additional pressure, becomes less. But it's having the self-awareness of all of this. Now, I have worked with tens of thousands of individuals within business, one-on-one and in small groups over 3+ decades. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Some of the toughest stories I've heard are from young men, and I say young men between the ages of sort of 20 and 28. Now there's a pressure on young men of that age to do certain, to be something, to do something, the pressure of having the car or the house or the getting married or the whatever it is, there are pressures. Some of the other incidences that I have actually seen as being, if you like, the worst are with older ladies, older women. I say older women, you don't have to be old, probably from the age of 40 upwards, because things have changed. We're not operating as women how we are, if you like, designed to operate. And we have all the additional pressures, and I sort of say this as a general thing. Women take on a lot. I'm not saying men don't. There's no gender imbalance here for me, but women don't always know how to say no. They don't always know how to ask for help, as men don't. Men are better at saying no. So there are slight differences, and this is not a gender thing. What we can all do, whoever we are, we can learn our coping strategies. We can develop coping strategies, but to do that we have to know what is affecting us. And that's the concept of the book. To create self-awareness with individuals. It does not matter how old you are. It does not matter what your gender is. It does not matter what country you are in. It doesn't matter who you are. We are all fundamentally built the same, regardless of culture, regardless of age, regardless of gender. We're fundamentally built the same. And that is what causes the stress response within our bodies. So this is episode 1. There are already before this 2 recordings online, so please listen to them. Please buy the book. It's going to be a really good price. It will be on Amazon. It will be on my website. It will be on onpointseries.com. It will be on juliehogbin.com. It will be on clavum.global and probably businesstalksandworkshops.com as well. So have a look at one of those. You'll find it. If anybody that's listening to this wants any a conversation with me, please email me, connect@clavum.global. That's CLAVEM. I'll respond to the email and we can book in a call, or even if it's an online communication, depending where you are in the world. I've coached people in Australia before, and that's as far apart on time zones as you could possibly get. So please contact me if you think I can help you in any way. And the initial call, it's a free offer to you. Initial call, just connect with me and we'll work something out without cost. But please be very conscious that stress affects all of us And it is that final thing. The acute stress response is in and out and done and dusted, body aroused, body relaxed. That's fine. We all suffer from that. We all get that. And some of that is really good. It's the insidious long-term effect of not dealing with something that we perceive as a problem that causes the issue that gives us the long-term effect. And that can be up to 18 months, 2 years after the original thing happened. So my original thing was the divorce, but it was all of the good things on top of that, the positive things, the nice things that actually created the issue. And it was the driving of the car that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. The driving of a car. And I love cars. I have no issue with cars. Doesn't matter what it is, you put it in front of me, I'll drive it. Been driving since I was 17. Absolutely love it. But that was the thing that broke the camel's back. So please contact with me if you would like, and I will talk to you all very soon. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Leadership Podcast. You can contact Julie on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and hear me out. Please subscribe to her YouTube channel for how-to videos and more content. And please message Julie to have your questions answered. Until next time, remember, knowledge plus action with a plan creates magical results. See it, say it, write it, believe it, and achieve it.